Welcome to Nilanjana's exclusive English lessons. Today we are going to start the poem When Great Trees Fall, written by Maya Angelou. Now, Maya Angelou was a poet, an author, and she's known for her unique autobiographical writing style. There was one of the poems which was very famous, and that was included in the last year's ICSE curriculum. So that was, I hope all of you know that poem. I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. It's a beautiful poem. This poem is also very meaningful. Okay. Now the theme of the poem is that in our life we often go through a major loss. Now that loss most of the time is the death of a loved one, death of a very close person in our life. And when that person dies, what happens is most of us, we feel a void, an emptiness, right? And that death, that emptiness impacts our life in every possible way. Most of us, we go through distress, we are in despair, there's loneliness which affects us. So the poet is trying to say that when a great soul or when a great person dies, okay, it affects us, impacts us in several ways. But then what is the outcome of it? Do we continue to mourn the loss, or we come out of it over the period of time? Because life has to go on, we all need to cope with that loss. And what we can carry forward is the memory. What we can carry forward is the beautiful moments that we have spent with our loved ones, those who are no longer with us. And that memory keeps us alive and it takes us ahead. Because at the end of the day, we all need to move on. Life has to go on. So this is the theme of the poem, and I'm sure all of you will love it. So let's begin. And before that, those who are new to my channel, this is Nilanjana Sarkar, and on this channel you're going to find content related to ICSE curriculum, even CBSE, ISC curriculum, HSC is also there for your convenience. All right, okay. So the name of the poem is When Great Trees Fall. So great tree is an extended metaphor. Now what is the meaning of an extended metaphor? That the poet is talking about a tree, and it talks about how the tree, when it falls, how it affects, impacts its surrounding. But then beyond that, the metaphorical meaning of this line is tree over here stands for a great soul, a great person. And when when that person is no longer there, then it impacts everyone. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. So when great trees fall, I already told you that great trees fall refers to a tree when it falls down. When the tree falls down, what happens is it affects the rocks on the distant hills. They also shudder. They also vibrate because the tree is a great tree, right? So when it falls, the rocks on the distant hills, means the faraway places, the faraway hills and mountains, even they come under the impact. So they also shudder, they also vibrate, they also tremble. Lions hunker down in tall grasses. Now lions here refers to the animal which symbolizes strength. Lion is a very fearsome animal, right? So it's not only the rocks, but even the lions, they also hunker down. Now hunker down means they also crouch low. Crouch low means they also try to save themselves from this disaster. They also they are trying to avoid the impact on them. And how they do that? They hunker down in tall grasses so that they can get a secure environment when such a crisis happens. So they also seek comfort, they also seek some security. And even elephants. Now see, after lions, the poet talks about elephants. So basically the poet talks about all the big animals. And even elephants lumber after safety. So elephants The poet has spoken about lions and also elephants. So basically, he talks about all the big animals. So they, even elephants, they lumber after safety. So they also lumber. Lumber means they also move slowly after safety. Why? Because they are also looking for a safe and a secure environment. So all the three things which the poet has mentioned over here, the first thing that he has mentioned is he talks about the rocks, then he talks about the lions, and then he talks about the elephants. So all these three things, what do they stand for? They stand for strength. They stand for solidarity, because lion, even an elephant, they are quite fearsome animals. So the large rocks on the hills, they are very heavy, right? You cannot move those rocks easily. But when a great tree falls, what happens is it impacts everything around it. When great trees fall in forest, small things recoil into silence. So when great trees fall, the first stanza we talk about the strong and the big animals. But here in the second stanza, the poet tells that not only the big things, but even the small things, they recoil. Recoil means they curl into silence. Curl means they draw back. They also draw back or curl back into silence. Their senses eroded beyond fear. Their senses also become, they get worn out. Their senses are shaken. They are also very scared. They are shocked. They are shaken. So it's not only the big animals but also the small creatures. They also curl or draw back in silence. Now, after this, the poet talks about when great souls die. Now, see, all these, in these last two stanzas, he spoke about the animals, he spoke about the non living things, and now he tells that when great souls die, great souls refers to the great people. When they die, what happens? The air around us becomes light, rare, and sterile. So, the air around us, the loss, this great loss, affects everyone. You can say that it affects humanity. So, that's the reason the poet tells that the air around us, humanity gets affected when a great soul dies. Okay, and the air becomes light, rare, and sterile. Sterile means barren, and rare means it becomes very different, and it also becomes light. So the three words, what kind of a meaning does these three words convey? The poet tells that there is an emptiness, there is a void in our lives, and that void cannot be filled by anything external. So this emptiness and voids is what that we are all engulfed when a great soul dies. We breathe briefly. We breathe briefly means we take small breaths. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. So, of course, we all go through this loss, and when we go through this loss, we see everything around us, but that vision or the sight, whatever catches our eyes, is something that also has pain in it. Hurtful means it's very painful, but at the same time, it has clarity. What is the clarity? The clarity is that when that person is no longer with us, the world changes, right? And it cannot be reversed. Things will never be the same when that person has left us, right? So the pain is there, but at the same time, the clarity is also there. Clarity means when it is clear to us that things will never be the same. So this is how our life gets impacted. The loss affects everyone. Okay, this poem is very emotional in one way that somebody who has gone through a major loss, you can take it as a source of comfort, because such poems are quite inspirational and motivational, because the pain or the loss, I think everybody has to go through this kind of a loss one day, or maybe some people have already gone through such a loss. Okay, but then when you actually read these poems, you will understand that it actually inspires you. It motivates you to live your life, and how to rise from this pain. Like I remember like if you take the example of the bird phoenix, how it rises from its ashes, right? So similarly, after pain, we all need to recover from this pain. And in that way, I feel this poem is actually very inspirational. Okay, let's get back. And yes, if you think this explanation is helping you, please go and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, those who haven't done it till now. All right. Yeah. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words, unsaid, promised walks never taken. So, when we also recollect the past experiences, and suddenly this memory becomes very sharp, and it gnaws on the kind words. The memory is associated with a lot of emptiness and void in our lives. Okay, so gnaws on kind words means certain things which were said, certain things which were unsaid, but then maybe you plan to say those things to that person one day, but probably it never got fulfilled. So the pain literally gnaws on the kind words which are unsaid, the words which were never spoken, but you thought that you will speak those words one day. The promised walks never taken. You plan to, walk, you plan to go somewhere with that person, but then such things never happened because before that, the person must have left the world, right? So the last two lines over here, promised walks never taken, actually gives us that some kind of a regret is there in the life in our lives. Things which you wanted to happen but it never happened, so the regret, despair can be felt in these lines. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Great souls die. So, what does this line mean? That this is an inevitable thing, that great souls die. Of course, nobody is immortal, and even somebody who is a great person, a great personality, even they will die one day. So, death is inevitable, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Reality was bound to them. Reality was bound to them means reality was bound to these souls. So when this person is no longer there with us, this loss actually changes a person's reality. Because your reality was bound to these souls. And when these souls are no longer there, then everything around us changes. Everything gets transformed, everything gets altered, because the world, as I already told you in the last stanza, that the world is never the same. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. So our souls always dependent upon their nurture. So our souls probably got nourished with their presence. But now when they are no longer there, the souls are robbed of the nourishment which was provided when they were alive. Now what is nourishment? Nourishment refers to, like, if you want to plant a tree, the plant needs nourishment, right? You give water, then you give manure, you give fertilizers, you give the plant needs sunlight. So all these factors, they give nourishment to the plant, and finally it grows to a beautiful tree, right? So similarly, our soul also needs nourishment. And how do we get that nourishment? When we have people around us who love us, who take care of us, who provides us emotional security. So these things give nourishment to the soul. But then what happens is the soul gets robbed of the nourishment because they are no longer there. So now the soul shrinks. Souls are now starving. They are shrunken and they are starving because that love, that care, that empathy is missing. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. So, not only our soul, but even our minds are also lost. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance. So, their presence actually radiated a lot of love and positive energy. Formed and informed refers to the influence these great souls had. So, how did they influence? They did not just inform the people, but they molded their way of thinking. Basically, they formed their minds. Formed over here means They when something takes a form, it takes a shape. So how does the mind take shape? Because the mind takes shape with the immense influence these people had on us. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. Now, the dark, cold caves, what does this refer to? This is again something that signifies loneliness. Okay, and when does this loneliness come? They come when we go through a tremendous loss. So, the feeling of being in a dark, where there is no light, cold, where there is no warmth. A cave is a place where you are stuck and there's nothing positive, or there is no light around you. And when the person leaves us, it is as if we are shut, or we are confined in this dark cold cave. And dark cold cave refers to the loneliness, the void, or the emptiness that we feel in our lives. The feeling of despair is actually so strong that it cannot be expressed in words, and that is the reason it is unutterable. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms slowly and always irregularly. And finally, what does the poet say? That when they die, after a period, so this period is a period when you recover from the loss, and after a certain point of time, peace blooms. Now, the word bloom is associated with a flower, just like we have spring after the season of winter. So, after the prolonged period of loss, finally peace blooms. Finally you start recovering from that loss, because as I said in the beginning, that life has to go on slowly and always irregularly. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms. So time heals everything. So when great souls die, after a prolonged period of loss and emptiness, you start recovering from that loss, because life has to go on. You cannot keep on mourning forever and ever, right? So just like after darkness, there is light. Similarly, after this loss, after this sorrow, slowly and slowly peace sets in, and it blooms. It blooms means just like spring comes after winter. Similarly, peace sets in after a certain period of time, when you start accepting the loss, and time heals everything. Fear, despair, grief, they never last forever. And slowly it returns. We are blessed with peace, but it comes slowly. It doesn't happen overnight, and it always happens in an irregular manner. Spaces filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Soothing electric vibration refers to a new spark of life. So the void, the emptiness is finally filled with the new magic of life, the new spark of life. Our senses are restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. See, our senses are restored, they come back to us. All this while it was never there, because we were like in the void, right? We were trying to recover from that loss. And when you are mourning, when you are soaked in sorrow, sometimes senses also, they don't work properly, but slowly and slowly the senses get restored. So definitely it is never going to be the same, though they come back to us after a period of time, but it is an irreparable loss. So therefore it is never to be the same. And what do they whisper to us? They existed. So the word existed, it reminds us that they were there, and they would always be there with their memories. And the word whisper tells that it is reminding us constantly. And if you can see that they existed is a repetition, because it emphasizes that death does not change anything. Even they are no longer there with us, but they existed. And if they have been existing all this while, they would continue to exist with their presence, with their memories. We can be and be better. So we can be means, yes, we have that ability. We have that ability to come out of it. Be and be better. So it is an inspiration. So let us be and be, continue to be better, because it is possible for us to be better. We just can't continue with that sense of loss, that void and emptiness forever. for they existed. So their existence would continue to inspire us because that would help us to move on in life. So what is that that we learn at the end of the poem is that great souls would definitely die because death is inevitable. One day or the other, we have to face this loss, in earlier or later. However, we just can't go on with the loss. The loss is definitely irreparable because that space cannot be filled with anyone else's presence. But at the same time, we also need to come out of it, and after a prolonged period of mourning, peace would definitely come. There is a new spark of life which will it will come to us. However, we continue to be better and better, and the very thought that they existed would be a motivation and inspiration for us. So that is the end of the poem. I hope all of you have understood. If you have not understood, you can write anything in the comments and I'll definitely try to answer. And yes, I would make a separate video on the figures of speech as well, probably sooner. I'm already a little delayed because there are a lot of things which kept me occupied. Probably I will share that with you. And yeah, that's the end of the poem. So the central theme of the poem is that if there is a loss, we need to come out of it because the period of mourning cannot go on forever. Therefore, this is how the poem, is very inspirational, motivational for all of us. Okay, thank you so much and have a nice day, all of you. Have a beautiful day. See you soon in my next video.